All right, so welcome back to another diabetes prevention session. As you've noticed now, we're down to one session a month for the remainder of our program, which will end in February. Can y'all believe we're already through the halfway point? And usually around this halfway point, people they might still be going strong, and then some people might be struggling and might have things going on, and that's okay. That's life. But we want to continue not just to talk about the things we can do to prevent it, but we also want to know a little bit more about what happens if we were to develop diabetes and what goes on with diabetes. Woohoo, checking in. So does anybody have any comments from the last session or from the last session to this session, with it being, we're at a month now? Have you seen any issues, any struggles? Do you think we will be, are these programs will be better at, 4 weeks at a time, or do you think it would help you more? Or do you think you would have been more productive if they stayed at every 2-week meetings?
I mean, I feel like so far the program has helped. One of the biggest challenges right now for a lot of people has been the weather. It's hard to exercise when it's hot, and so I feel like that's one of the biggest challenges. At the clinic, I have been encouraging patients to make sure they get some kind of physical activity inside. A lot of times, like YouTube has like good exercise that you can do at home, and so I've recommended those. But one of the biggest challenges right now for people in general, and even for me, has been the weather. It's just way too hot.
Yes, it has been very hot, and anyone that's lived in the South long enough and has tried to get outside and do much activity realizes that that's definitely a hindrance on us. But you mentioned something that's very good, Giselle, and that is recommending the YouTube videos that are free. And you can find all kind of videos that you can learn to do in your house. You can watch video sessions of exercises, or just see some little small exercises you can do in your office, at your desk, on your break time. So there's lots of good resources out there now that we might not have had in the past, or that were hard to find. So diabetes, the basics of diabetes, we know that if you were to develop, or if you do have diabetes currently, diabetes is not just a disease process that just affects or causes you to have high blood sugars. It can and does cause multi-organ damage if you develop it. And, the one thing that most people think about when it comes to diabetes is having their vision checked and getting their feet checked every time they go to the doctor, or at least certain times of the year. But kidneys are also another organ that are severely damaged by diabetes due to excess blood sugars. And it used to be, and I previously worked in a dialysis area many years ago, but it used to be that hypertension or high blood pressure was the main cause of kidney failure and kidney dialysis. But I am quite certain that many years ago now, diabetes took over that role. And so our kidneys, our heart, it can affect our sexual function because it affects our blood vessels, which can affect our blood flow and our nerves. Those of us that are in medical practice, or maybe those of you that are attending this program yourself, or you have noticed a loved one that's had a wound on their foot, and they said, well, I didn't even know I had anything on my foot. And it's because those nerves have been damaged due to the long-standing elevated blood sugars, and so they've developed peripheral neuropathy, and they don't feel anything. And then our teeth and our gums and all of these things can lead to a lot of issues, we might think with our teeth and our gums, oh, well, I can just get me some dentures. Well, you could, but when you, if you don't have those, if you have a lot of teeth issues, a lot of cavities, if you get infections in your mouth, those can lead to your heart and can actually kill you. And so there's lots of things. Basically, there's not any organ system that can't be affected by diabetes. And so that's why it's important that we prevent it or at least slow its progression if possible. We know the risk factors that can be associated with diabetes. All of these you see listed are risk factors. It does not mean that you're absolutely going to get it because you have these risk factors, but that just means the more of these you have, you know, the greater chances that you could potentially develop diabetes. And so we see all of those there. Being heavy, not being active, as we were just talking about. This heat makes it hard for us to be active. Age, our race, if we've had gestational diabetes while we were pregnant, all those things can be future risk. And so how do we know if we have diabetes? Most of us are in the medical field that's attending this, or we are someone who's already been diagnosed with pre-diabetes or diabetes. And so, you know, you had your sugar checked at some point, and or maybe your A1C checked, and your doctor said, hey, this number's teetering on being too high, or it's already too high. And you can see there, it's not diabetes until your A1C is greater than or equal to 6.5. And so if you're below that, you can still slow the progression or even arrest the prevention of this disease. And another thing you need to know is not everyone is always symptomatic. Is anyone on here a diabetic or pre-diabetic, and did you have any symptoms before you were told that, you know, that was the case for you that you would like to share, or were you asymptomatic, didn't have any symptoms? Nope. Well, just that's something good to note, is that you don't always have to have symptoms, just like with high blood pressure. A lot of people will say, well, I felt fine. I ain't had any symptoms. I don't have high blood pressure. But you can have the disease and not have symptoms. It can be a little while before the symptoms develop. And usually by that time, you've got some, you know, injuries that have been caused to the body. So it's important, if you don't already have a primary care provider and see one regularly, that you establish that relationship. You want to be sure that you see your primary care provider. If you're otherwise healthy and don't take any medicines, you still need to see them once a year and have an evaluation. And they'll usually check, you know, just your regular fasting plasma glucose or your blood sugar when you go for just your yearly checkup. And that way they can gauge whether or not they need to check other tests. And they'll also check your cholesterol and stuff. So what's our goal of managing type 2 diabetes and the treatment? So naturally, our goal is going to be to keep our blood sugar in a healthy range. And we can't know if they're healthy if we're not testing them. And if we have already been told that we're pre-diabetic, or if we are diabetic currently or being treated for diabetes, you know, it's really important for you to be checking those blood sugars. Treatment, of course, diet is the first line treatment, and that's lower refined carbohydrates. Who can tell me or give me an example of what lower refined carbohydrates are?
Foods, high in fiber.
Yes. Higher in fiber, more those tend to be more nutrient dense foods, less processed foods, more closer to the way they come from the earth. Foods are lower refined carbohydrates, and those tend to be, when they're less refined, they're more what we call complex carbohydrates. And so when we eat those lower refined carbohydrates, our body, our insulin and our sugars don't just jack up, they don't spike. We have better blood sugar control. It's more of a slow release, whereas if we eat more refined carbohydrates, highly processed carbohydrates, then those are fast acting, and that's why. And we've all been there before and ate too many carbs, and kind of within 15, 20, 30 minutes we start feeling that it spikes us. It feels good for a little bit, and then we have that lull that comes after it. So you do need to keep a consistent carbohydrate intake throughout the day. Your body does need carbs. You need that to function, for your cells to work properly, for your brain to be able to think and allow you to do the things that you need to do throughout the day. Just be sure you're taking in a combination of the foods you need to eat, not all of one type. Physical activity. By being physically active, we help to reduce our blood sugar. And then we have medications, as we all know. There's metformin. There's a whole host of medications now that can be given to help treat diabetes. And it's a good thing to say that we have a lot more options nowadays. But on the other hand, we still have a lot of people that are developing this disease unnecessarily. So we have a lot of work to do to help people. So of course, self-monitoring, we just talked about that. Checking your blood sugars. And a lot of people, even that aren't diabetics, I have seen a lot of advertising recently for these continuous glucose monitoring devices that people that aren't even diabetics are wearing currently, just to where they can see how foods do affect them and to know how to better control their diet. So I'm sure they're having to pay for all that out of pocket, and I'm not sure where that's going, but that's been interesting to see. And you can see a picture here of one type of monitoring system. And you can see how there's apps now where you can see your blood sugars on your phone. You can be able to track them, trend them, and then this information can also be sent to your provider that's managing your blood sugars. So let's talk about Mike and Henry's story. So Mike is at risk for type 2 diabetes, and he's trying to prevent or delay it by living a healthy lifestyle. Mike's dad, Henry, has type 2 diabetes, and his goal is to keep his blood sugar in a healthy range. So Mike and Henry have very similar eating and fitness goals. They're both trying to reach and stay at a healthy weight, and they both track their eating and activity. Unlike Mike, though, Henry checks his own blood sugar each day, and he tracks the results. Henry also takes pills to control his blood sugar. Mike and Henry both keep an eye on their health, but Henry visits his healthcare provider more often. He also has more lab tests. In addition to getting his blood sugar checked, he needs to get his blood pressure, cholesterol, kidneys, eyes, and feet checked on a regular basis. Mike has lost weight, and his latest blood sugar numbers are normal. His provider says that he's on track to prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. And Henry's latest blood sugar numbers are normal too. His provider says he's doing a good job keeping his blood sugar in a healthy range. So we see that they're both coming at it from a little bit different perspective. One, has diabetes, and one doesn't, is trying to prevent it. They're both being active, though, in the role of managing what's going on with their body, and so that's the positive thing there. So how would you change if you had type 2 diabetes? So anybody on here, if you were told that you had type 2 diabetes tomorrow, what changes would you make?
Watch some of my food, not watch what I'm eating. Try to eat less carbohydrates. Probably increase my physical activity a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were to go ahead and give me medications, take my medications as they were prescribed, and if I experience any side effects, I will report them um to my provider and see what he recommended.
Yes, and what if we couldn't increase our physical activity? What if we had other health issues that were preventing that? Then we would really have to focus on our diet and monitoring our blood sugars to know how to control it better with our diet, wouldn't we?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
All right. So we come to the part that we talk about it at each session, and that's continuing to make and log on our action plans. So this is so important, guys. If you are participating in this program, for you to continue to set goals and figure out how you're going to meet those goals. Because just like with anything in life, if you don't have a plan, it makes it more difficult to obtain and to kind of stay on track. And so I highly encourage you to set you an action plan, especially since we're, a month at a time now. This action plan can help you to stay on track between now and the next 4 weeks when we meet again, because it's been shown the less you meet, the kind of can kind of slip out of your mind and out of the wayside. But if you'll keep this action plan up, keep it to where you can see it, make it available where, if you put it on your fridge or if you keep it on your calendar at work where you know what your goals are for this next 4 weeks, that can be very helpful to you.